Hey, my name is Brooke Michael, and I want to welcome you today to the University of Michigan-Flint's Early Assurance into our MSN and DNP program. So first off, we're going to talk about what is early assurance. So early assurance is for students that are admitted into the University of Michigan-Flint for one of our BSN programs. It can be the RN BSN program, traditional BSN program, accelerated second degree BSN program, or our veterans BSN program. That want to continue onto the MSN or DNP programs that we offer at the University of Michigan-Flint after graduation with their BSN. And it basically kind of holds a spot or holds a seat in our competitive admissions MSN and DNP programs for those students that meet the criteria. So we have 4 different tracks in our MSN and DNP program here at the University of Michigan-Flint. They're all nurse practitioner tracks. So we have the adult gero acute care track, the adult gero primary care track, the family nurse practitioner track, and the psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner track. All of those 4 tracks all have an MSN and a DNP option with them. Now we're going to talk about the different prerequisite requirements for each of these different programs. So if you're an RN to BSN student, so that's that associate's degree to BSN completion program, what happens is that after you have completed 4 of the classes that are required in the RN to BSN program, NSC 180 legal and moral decision making, Nursing 300, Theoretical Concepts for Professional Nursing, Nursing 307, Integrated Case Studies in Nursing, and Nursing 316, Research in Nursing. If you complete those classes with a B+ or better, then you can fill out this form. This form is on the slideshow along with on our website. So you click that form to fill out that the early assurance application. Then you may not fill out the form, keep in mind, until you have completed with a B+ or better those 4 classes. So if you're currently enrolled in one of these classes or planning on taking it in a future term, it would need to be after final grades are posted in all 4 of those classes. Then after you have filled out the form and received your early assurance acceptance, you will need to maintain an overall GPA of a 3.5 or better at the University of Michigan-Flint. Now, what that means by an overall GPA, it means everything that you've taken at the University of Michigan-Flint. This does not include anything you transferred in from your associate's degree program or from a different college or university. It's what you specifically took at the University of Michigan-Flint. This could be your nursing curriculum, or if you took any general education classes, those would factor in. Now, keep in mind an overall GPA is taking all of your classes and averaging them out. So it's not that you need a B+ or a 3.5 or better in every single class that you take at the University of Michigan-Flint. It means that you do need a B+ or better in those 4 specific classes. And then everything else that you take needs to average out to that 3.5 GPA. Meaning that, let's say you didn't do well in one of your classes and you ended up with a C. As long as you get an A in at least 1 or 2 other classes, depending on how many credits that C class was, then it should still average out to that 3.5 GPA. So that's that average. Remember, overall average of a 3.5 GPA or better. What you want to keep in mind when you're filling out that form is that you cannot pick a semester to start into the MSN and DNP program that is before when you will graduate with your BSN. So for example, when you're filling out that form, it'll say, when do you want to start into graduate programs? And you can pick fall 24, winter 24, winter 25, fall 25. But let's give an example. Let's say that you're going to graduate in December of 2023. The earliest that you could put to start into graduate program would be winter of 2024. You could not pick to start in the fall of 2023 because you wouldn't have been done with your BSN at that point. Now you can always pick later. So let's say again, same scenario, I'm graduating in the December of 23. I can pick winter of 24. I can pick fall of 24. I can pick winter of 25. But again, I can't pick anything before the winter of 24 because I wouldn't be done with my BSN by that time. So this is the information for my traditional students. So if you're in our traditional nursing student, you again need to maintain an overall GPA of a 3.5 or better. Again, same scenario I just used on those RN to BSN students. Your overall GPA is an average, right, of every class you've ever taken at the University of Michigan-Flint. Same scenario, it does not apply any classes that you took and transferred in. This is only classes that you completed at the University of Michigan-Flint. Again, same scenario. It includes anything you took with us, whether it is a general education class or a nursing class. So, and again, same scenario. If you got a C in one of the classes, you may need 2 A's to average out in 2 other classes that 3.5 GPA. And you must be in your 4th semester in the BSN program, not 4th semester at the University of Michigan-Flint, but the 4th semester within the BSN program. After you got admitted into the BSN program, 4th semester, before you can fill out the form. This is about 1 year before you graduate. So when we're having these different time frames, what we're trying to do is to get you to fill it out about a year before you're graduating. The reason is that we don't want you filling it out so early in case life comes up and things happen and you end up needing to take time off. So about a year out from graduation, traditionally, you are, knowing that you're, not saying that unexpected life events can't happen, but you're knowing that's probably when you're going to finish up. So when you go to fill out the form for my traditional students, you will need to know your cohort number and your grade in pathophysiology. So make sure you either have your transcript handy or you've talked to your advisor beforehand. Again, same scenario. You cannot pick a start date into the graduate programs until you have completed your BSN. And another thing to keep in mind for my traditional students is that you also cannot start into graduate programs until you have passed your nursing license. So same scenario, I'm going to use that same scenario I just used for the RN to BSN students. If you're graduating in December of 2023, the earliest you could pick to start would again be winter of 24. But for my traditional students, there's another caveat or another thing to keep in mind. You have to pass your nursing license. If you're graduating in December of 2023 and you want to start in winter of 2024, which is a January start, that is a very short turnaround time to pass your nursing license, to pass your NCLEX. If you don't pass it on that first time around, then you're going to lose your early assurance application and have to go into the regular pool for a fall or beyond start. So again, my suggestion would be to give yourself some wiggle room, right? And if you're going to start in finish in December of 23, maybe don't pick to start until the fall of 24. Let yourself get your nursing license passed, maybe start a new job. You might have orientation at that job, things like that beforehand. And so this form is the form that you'll fill out. It's the exact same form for every single student. You just pick your program and then it will populate the specific questions based on which BSN program you're in. Now for my accelerated second degree and my veterans BSN students, this is after you can fill out the form after you've completed 2 semesters in the BSN program. Again, that is not counting your prerequisites that you took with us. This is after you were admitted into the BSN program 2 semesters in, and then you can fill out the form. Again, that's about 1 year from graduation. And you must maintain a 3.5 GPA or better at the University of Michigan-Flint. Again, this does not count anything you transferred in. So if you have a previous bachelor's degree from a different college or university, those classes would not count. Again, same scenario. You need to know your cohort number and your grade in pathophysiology when you fill out the form. And again, same scenario as the traditional students. You cannot pick a start date into graduate programs that is prior to finishing your BSN and prior to passing your nursing license. So again, if you're a December grad, give yourself some wiggle room, maybe not start until the fall of the following year. So early assurance deadlines, these are the dates in which the applications are reviewed. That does not mean you have to wait to fill this out. So as soon as you've met that criteria, depending on which program you're in, if you're an RN to BSN program, I finished those 4 classes. If I'm a traditional student, or ASD or veteran students, I'm about a year from graduating. Once you are in that clearance, then you can go ahead and fill out the form. It's just you won't hear back from them before these times. So you'll hear from them about 2 weeks after December 1st if you got into early assurance, and about 2 weeks into April 15th or after April 15th is when you'll hear back. But again, as soon as you met the criteria, go ahead and fill out the form, and that way it's there ready for them to process. So here's the thing you need to keep in mind. So you did all those steps, you filled out early assurance, you got your email that said, congratulations, you're admitted into the early assurance program. There is a secondary application process. Now, once you are admitted into the early assurance process, it will not be taken away from you unless A, you go below that overall GPA, or B, you do not turn in the secondary application and information that must be turned in by the deadlines. So please hear me when I say this. The early assurance application needs to be filled out, and then you get your email of acceptance, and then you need to fill these out by the deadlines of when you picked you wanted to start. So again, for example, if you said, I want to start in the fall of 24, then that means you would need to have everything we're going to talk about on the next couple of slides turned in no later than April 1st. All of this still must be turned in. Now, it's not going to deny your seat if you turn some of this in, and maybe your goal statement wasn't as great as it could be. That's not what will happen. But what will happen is if you don't turn the things in, your early assurance can be revoked because you didn't turn everything in by the deadline. So again, if you're looking at a winter start, it needs to be done by August 15th, no later than. So let's talk about what needs to be turned in on that secondary application before the deadline of the semester you're ready to start into grad program. So again, if you're not picking to start into grad program, so the fall of 25, right, then you wouldn't have to turn that stuff in until April of 25, right? So keep that in mind. So here's what needs to be turned in. I'm not going to read all of this to you. You guys are all fully capable of reading. You can get the slideshow. This information is on the website as well, but you need to turn all of these things in by those deadlines before the semester that you picked to start into grad programs. So you do not have to turn in transcripts again, obviously, because you have your transcripts here at the University of Michigan-Flint, but you do need to turn in the application and letters of recommendation and all of that good stuff before those deadlines. So now let's talk about, for just a second, the acute care track. Now, this is the only track that has work experience requirements. So keep that in mind. If you are not interested in acute care, this is not applicable to you. So I get that asked a lot, even though I emphasize this. They'll ask me about work experiences, and if it's applicable to the psychiatric track, the family nurse practitioner track, and the adult gero primary track have no work experience requirements. The only track that does is the acute care. So now we're just talking about acute care. Not interested in acute care, just close your ears because it's not applicable to you. But if you are interested in the acute care track, you do need to have 1 year full-time experience as a registered nurse in a critical care unit. Now, we list out what we consider critical care units along with the experiences that we would like you to have. If you are getting ready to start a job or have already had these experiences, and you don't see your specific scenarios listed, you can email Julie. That email address is at the bottom. List out what your experience is, and she will let you know if that is considered acute care experience. So for my students that are RN to BSN students, you may have already had this experience as a registered nurse. For my traditional ASD and veteran students, you won't have this experience until after you've graduated with your BSN. So if you are looking at starting or applying for the acute care track, you have to give yourself at least 1 year to have this experience after you've graduated with your BSN. So again, when you're filling out that early assurance form, using the same scenario, you graduated in December of 2023, the earliest you could pick for the acute care track would be winter of 25, because you would need 1 full year experience as a registered nurse before you could start this program. So keep that in mind. So common questions. Can I repeat a course to get a better grade to improve my GPA? Yes, you can repeat a course in order to improve your GPA. Before you do, please speak with your advisor to make sure that's going to actually benefit you. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind when you repeat a class. So an overall GPA, like I said, is averaging out all of your classes. But if you want to do the most good to your GPA, there's two things you need to keep in mind. Once you graduate with your bachelor's degree, your GPA is set in stone. You cannot adjust that GPA. So if your GPA has fallen and you need to improve it, you have to potentially, if you can't work the class into your last semesters, extend your graduation, because once you confirm that degree, that GPA is set in stone. So keep that in mind. You might need to extend your graduation to improve your GPA. The other thing to keep in mind is the quickest and most efficient way to improve a GPA is to retake a specific class you got a low grade in. So for example, if you took Theater 100 and you got a D in that class at the university, you need to retake Theater 100, because if you get an A, let's say, even though that D still shows up on your transcripts, it's never going to go away, but it doesn't calculate in your GPA. That A grade trumps the D grade. It's like it doesn't exist in the GPA calculation part. And so your A grade trumps it. So you go from having a 2.0 to a 4.0 in that particular class. Whereas if you took Theater 100 and got a D, and then you take Theater 101, different class, then they're averaging out that D and A to a B minus, right? Or whatever that would average out to. So the best and most efficient way is to retake specific classes at the university that you received a low grade in. Again, highly recommend, before you spend the time and money on retaking classes, that you that you talk to your advisor to see what's going to be your best plan of action. What if I need to choose a different start date than the one I picked on my original early assurance application? So again, let's go to that scenario. You were an overachiever. You thought you could do it. You were graduating in December of 2023. And then life comes up. You either didn't pass your nursing license or you didn't graduate on time. And you had picked to start in January 2024. Then you lose your early assurance application. That, when you fill out that form, you really need to know when you're going to start. This is why I say give yourself some wiggle room, because you need to go into the regular pool if you don't start. That seat is only held in that semester. So we're holding that seat and that specific start date so that another student from another school or university doesn't take your spot. And if you don't show up on that, we can't just keep moving that around. So you would have to go into the regular applicant pool. Now, we still take a high preference to our own students. So if you go in and apply as a regular student, there's a still high likelihood that you'll get in. But just keep in mind that the seat is not saved like it was. Can I take time off? We don't recommend it once you start into graduate programs, because some of these graduate program classes are only offered once a year. They are cohorted, meaning they are built upon each other, so you can't just take them out of sequence most of the time, and they may not be offered again for up to a year. So if you take time up, it could delay your graduation up to a year, so please keep that in mind. Can the RN to BSN students transfer in those pre-admission courses, 300, 307, 316, or 180? Yes, you absolutely can, but you will need to know your grade that you received in that. So if you transferred it in from the community college and you have a B minus, then you can't use the early assurance form. You would want to think about either going into the regular applicant pool or retaking that class with us to get that better GPA. Other questions are, how long does it take? So we're talking about once you start undergrad programs, not from the day you fill out the early assurance application, not from today, but the day that you start into your first graduate program class. To get to the MSN, my part-time students, it takes 2 years and 8 months. A full-time student takes 1 year and 8 months. To get to the DNP, it is 1 more year past the MSN. So when you see those timeframes for the DNP. That's not an addition or on top of the MSN. That's from the day you started into grad programs till the day you graduate with your DNP is 3 years and 8 months, and full-time is 2 years and 8 months. Can I work full-time? So once you start into graduate programs, it is not recommended. It's especially not recommended if you're going to school full-time. I know that 1 year, 8 months is looking really tempting on that MSN and DNP area over there. But keep in mind that if you're going full-time, there is really just not enough hours in the day, or in the week, I should say, to get a full-time 40-hour-a-week job and complete a full-time curriculum. There's just not enough hours. So if you're going to go to school full-time, you really are going to have to work part-time or not work at all. How many classes do I take each semester in the MSN and DNP? On an average, you're going to take 2 classes as a part-time student, and on average 3 to 4 classes as a full-time student. So why should I get my DNP instead of the MSN? So that's always the question. Keep in mind, you're always admitted as a DNP student with the option to stop out at the MSN, but there's not a secondary application for you that way. But if you're planning on working in the field for more than 10 years, we do recommend going on to the DNP, and here's why. So although legislation has not passed anything, they are moving towards requiring a nurse practitioner to be a DNP degree. Just like they did for nurse anesthetist, it went from a master's to a doctorate required. So once you get your MSN in nurse practitioner, they can't take that away. You're grandfathered in, but it's not necessarily about that as much as it is about the jobs. The jobs already are leaning towards the DNP, especially in family nurse practitioner. So if you're planning on working in the field for more than 10 years, we highly recommend going ahead and getting your DNP, because that's what the jobs are going to start to require. So what we recommend is you can always book an appointment with your advisor to talk about when you think you're going to graduate or what your grades were in patho for my traditional veterans and accelerated students. These are the links to book an appointment. It's the same link no matter what kind of student you are. You just pick your program and it will help populate your correct advisor. We do offer face-to-face, phone, and virtual appointments. So tuition and scholarships, tuition, once you start into the MSN and DNP program, it's currently at $803 per credit hour. Now that's for the 23-24 school year. If you weren't starting till 24-25 or 25-26, there could be a different tuition change that's normally changed on a yearly basis in a fall. We do offer a lot of scholarships and the Faculty Nursing Loan Forgiveness Program. Please read through those to see if that's something that you qualify for or that you're interested in. So these are your traditional ASD and Veterans Advisor. We have Jessica and Monica, and then these are the RN to BSN advisors. That's me. And then you see Tiffany, Stephanie, and Jennifer. You can work with any of us. You're not assigned a specific advisor. So that's the end of the presentation for our University of Michigan Flint's Early Assurance Program. If you have additional questions or concerns, please reach out to your advisor that is for your specific program. Thanks and have a wonderful day.